Hey, great to be with you again. As you can see, man, it's Christmas, and we're getting really close to it. So we decided I would be your gift underneath the Christmas tree, even though I'm too big to go underneath it. I'm beside it. So, hey, you know what? Today I'm really glad to have you with us, and glad you were able to tune us in. And if you're able to, drop in at the church. This is going to be our last Sunday before Christmas comes. But I wanted to share with you today about missing Christmas. I think it's pretty easy to say that around us today, a lot of people are talking about missing Christmas. This pandemic has really turned everything upside down. People are wondering, how many can I have in my home? Can I have my family for Christmas? Are we really going to miss Christmas because we can't get together with our family? There's people wondering, hey, am I going to get my gifts because the embargo, or even with the backup of all of these boats, these ships in the harbors that can't get the Christmas gifts or the product off that are going to be Christmas gifts for people. All of these things are going, and people are all making this comment. I think, are we really going to miss Christmas? So I thought about this maybe a little bit more than just, are we going to have Christmas physically or whatever, but the fact of missing Christmas. And really, what my concern is that many of us will miss Christmas. And we'll miss it because we miss who Jesus Christ is. So I was looking at some scripture verses, and especially in Matthew chapter 2. So if you've got your phones or you've got your Bibles with you, if you turn to Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. Now, we're not going to read all that in one clump. I'm going to do it in little clumps because I'm going to break it down a bit for you. But with that in mind, I'm really asking you, the first people that had Christmas, those involved around Christmas about Jesus' birth, there were those that totally missed Jesus' birth and Jesus coming. And so they missed Christmas. And I think that's still a part of even today, that we can get distracted, we can get tied up in certain things, and we can miss what Christmas is. I think each of you could probably think of some Christmas, man, it's oblivious. You don't even have a memory of it. See, we probably could go to Luke chapter 2. I'm not wanting you to go there, but we could probably go there. Luke chapter 2, and we could read about the innkeeper. He missed Christmas. He didn't have room for Jesus, and there's so many people today that don't have room for Jesus in their lives. But I want to cover 3 reasons people miss Christmas from the story in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. So the first reason is we miss Christmas when we are self-centered. Yeah, self-centered. Let me just read a little bit of scripture to you. We're going to look at King Herod, and he was very much self-centered, and he missed Christmas. So scripture says in verses 1 to 3 is what we want to look at. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the times of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his," and key on that word, his star in the east, and have come to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem was disturbed with him. My question really is, right off the bat, reading those verses, my question is, how can 3 guys, I call them wise guys, 3 wise guys on camels upset and disturb King Herod, this king of Judah? How could this 3 wise men upset him? Well, to understand that, I've got a little bit of history that you need to get a hold of. And you want to get this picture. It's in between the lines. You have to do some studying to see it. But to understand it, we need to go deeper into the story, why he is so upset, he is so afraid, he is so, concerned and scared for his life. So first of all, to understand it, what we need to know, Herod was really a puppet king. He was put in position in Judea by the Romans, which is hard to believe because he was a king of the Jews. But he was put there by the Romans. And we need to understand that. And we need to also understand kind of the setup here. We had Rome over here, Roman Empire over here. Then we have Judea in the middle, where King Herod is ruling. And then over here, we have Babylon and the Persian armies. And there is a battle going on between these two empires. The Persian and Babylonian empires were strong enough to take on the Romans. They were the only ones that really could compete with power and strength in battle. And so they would continually battle. And the neutral ground was Israel and Judea. The whole territory there is where much of the battle between these two went on. And sometimes they battled for Judea to get it and get power in there so they had a closer chance to get to their enemy. It's funny, if you really look at what's going on in the world today, a lot of that is still going on. There are really no man land in between fighting armies, and they're continually trying to get control of that area to have more power. They would fight over this buffer zone, if we could call Judea that, and there would always be a battle kind of going on there, and Herod was in the middle of it, and Herod knew a lot of things that were going on in that situation. So let's build this up a bit. What had happened in one of these times, just before Herod became king, the Persians and the Babylonians came in to Judah, and they took the Jewish king. They captured him. They took many of the people, and they took them back into their country. And in fact, basically history tells us that they took this Jewish king and they cut his ears off. And they were making a mark. There was a rage came out in Rome. Who do these guys think they are, coming in and taking over Judea? So all of a sudden, you'd probably remember this one, Cleopatra, her boyfriend, which was Mark Antony, he had a great army with him, and he came back and took over what those Persians and Babylonians had taken. And he killed many of them and drove them back into their own country. Now, there is no king in Judah at that time. All of a sudden, Herod sees it and thinks this is a great opportunity. So what he does is he kind of gets close with Mark Antony, and he really persuades him to make him king. And so Mark Antony falls into this whole thing, and they make Herod the king of Judah, the king of the Jews. And he is there. Now, it's easy to say Herod was a madman, but he was also a genius. He built more buildings in his time of reign than anybody, and they by far were spectacular. At Herod's core, really at his innermost being, he was a psychopath. So what is a psychopath? It's someone who is callous, someone who is unemotional and morally deprived. He didn't care who he killed. In fact, he killed his wife, he killed his sons, he killed his brother-in-law, he killed others around him. Whoever came after him, or whoever he thought was a threat to take his position, he would wipe them out, he would take them out. Now picture this. He is all concerned about himself, he's concerned about his position, he is self-centered. Now all of a sudden these magi show up. Now these magi were a priestly tribe, and they came from the Persian and Babylonian. They had, first time we hear about these guys, these magi, is in Daniel, because Daniel was taken captive and taken back into Babylon, and he became a chief of these magi, and he spoke into them much of what they ended up doing for them to know that Jesus was being born, the Messiah had come. You need to understand that these magi basically carried a lot of clout. They were a part of the political realm. They were the ones that were really put in place to call in the next king that would come into power. So now you're starting to get the picture. All of a sudden, these magi show up. They're saying, where is the king of the Jews? And then we start finding out Herod is now going like, holy smokes, these guys are the guys that put a king in position. And now they're coming here looking for a king. That must mean they're wanting to get rid of me. And I know what happened to the last king that was here that they didn't want to have around. So now all of a sudden, Herod is filled with fear, and he is overwhelmed with fear. And he is just really shaking in his boots. Now, we need to understand this. Hallmark has really made some things really interesting for us in their cards. We always think that there are three wise men, and those guys always came to Jesus in the manger. Well, the truth is, they came when Jesus was about 2 years of age. And realistically, history says there was probably 50 to 100 magi that came into Herod's court. And they didn't come alone. They came with about 1,000 mounted cavalry. Now, I don't know, that was a pretty big show of force, and made it even worse that all of a sudden Herod's army, his army, was out all over the country because of the census. So he really didn't even have the protection of his army. He was scared out of his mind. All Herod was thinking about was keeping his job, keeping his position, keeping his life, and keeping his income. He is also absolutely consumed with himself. He doesn't care about anything or anybody else. He doesn't even care about Jesus. Here is Jesus, the Messiah, the King of Kings. He was ruling the Jewish people. He had heard his priests talk about the Messiah will come someday. He didn't even care. When we live our lives for ourselves, we are going to miss Christmas. When you start living your life just for you and everything's around you, I guarantee you're going to miss Christmas. See, the King of the universe was being born, and Herod didn't even care. So I have a question for you. What concerns you? Think about it right now. What concerns you? What is on your agenda? What are you thinking about? What is captivating your life? Is it all about you? Is it what you're going to get at Christmas? Is how things going to work for you? How are you going to get through this? When we become so overwhelmed with everything that affects us, we can easily miss the most important thing, and that is Jesus. Herod is a great reminder that it's not about more money, more position, more influence. It's not about you. It's about the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. That's what it's all about. And we need to understand that. The second reason that we see from this story is this. We miss Christmas if we become spiritually indifferent or lethargic. We kind of just lay back in our spiritual walk. We see Herod calls on his religious leaders to come together and give him information about the child. Matthew chapter 2, verses 4 and 5 says this. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where Christ was to be born. Right away, with no hesitation, they say, in Bethlehem in Judea. They replied, for this is what the prophets have written. They were quoting out of Micah 5:2, which we read in the next verse, in verse 6. And it says, but you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come the ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel. Understand this. Bethlehem is about 4 to 5 miles away from Jerusalem. It's about a half a day's walk. And these religious leaders knew exactly where the Messiah was going to be born. Now they've got their king coming to them, asking them where he's born. They must have known that the Magi were there and said that he had been born. And my question to you, and my question that gets me, I'm totally rocked. Why did they not go to see the baby themselves? They've been waiting centuries for the Messiah, but we find them sitting in Jerusalem. They do not pack their bags and head to Bethlehem. Why did they not go? I believe that they spiritually knew where he was born. They knew the prophecies. They knew everything logically, but it hadn't touched their heart. They really didn't care. So we need to understand it is so dangerous to think when we are not wowed or wooed or don't get the goosebumps when we read God's word or when we're in his presence or when we're in the middle of worship and we kind of lay back and we say, well, you know, if I read my Bible, I read my Bible. If I don't, I don't. If I pray, I pray. Or if I come to church and I sit and worship is going on and I don't connect into worship, I don't even, raise my hands or sing or sit quietly and get consumed with them. But I just kind of come in and go through the motions. There's so many people that are Christian by title, but they're not Christian by relationship. And that's what these religious leaders were. They were religious leaders, but they didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus. And my word to you is to look at yourself and don't let yourself get familiar with God, that you are not excited about being in his word. When this Christmas is here and you're reading the Christmas story around the table with your family or somewhere through here, that you don't get wowed and know how great our God is that he sent his son for us. Oh, don't lose the wonder. Don't lose the wonder. Keep seeking him. Keep going after him. Don't be caught that you miss the wonder. The third reason is we miss Christmas is when we focus on the wrong things. We go on to read in verse 2 again, it says, the people of Jerusalem miss Christmas. Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and came to worship him. This is the Magi saying this. They saw a star. What was the star? Well, many concordances and different theologians have studied and said it could be a comet, maybe Halley's Comet, maybe it was a cluster of planets coming together, maybe it was a literal star. Could I suggest to you today, right there where you're sitting, that maybe it wasn't even a star? Maybe Hallmark put a star on their card, and maybe that's not what it was. I'm not picking on Hallmark. But bottom line is, what happens if it was the glory of God shining down? Luke 2, verses 8 and 9 says this, and in the same region were the shepherds out in their field keeping watch over their flocks by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory, get this, the glory of the Lord shone around them. Wasn't a star shone around them. The glory of the Lord shone around them. Could it have been the glory of the Lord that shone down and guided the Magi? The Shekinah glory that we read about? Look at verse 7 and 8 of Matthew 2. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and asserted them what time. He really asked them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem saying, go and search diligently for the child. And when you find him, bring me word that I may go worship him. Well, we know he wasn't going to worship him. He wanted to kill him. Jesus, as we know, was probably anywhere between 18 months and 2 years old. Verse 9 and 10 of Matthew 2 says this, after listening to the king, they went on their way, the Magi, and behold, the star that they seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. I believe they saw something they had never seen before. They had heard it from Daniel. Daniel had shared with them. I believe some of those Magi's were probably Christians. Some of them probably were not followers of Christ, but they still came. I have another question. My question is, if the glory or the star lit up the heavens, why didn't everybody in Jerusalem see the star? Why weren't they attracted? How many know if there is an accident, if there is something going on, everybody stops. Everybody seems to get there. Everybody finds out. Come on, we've got Facebook now. You know everything that's going on, and we jump in our cars to go see what's going on. All of a sudden, this light is bright enough to cause these Magi's to travel 50 to 100 plus 1,000 mounted cavalry to travel to Bethlehem. These shepherds who are lowly shepherds, who are humble, they leave their sheep, which is their responsibility, and come to a manger to find Jesus. And these wise men show up in Bethlehem into a house to find Jesus. But Jerusalem, it didn't see the glory. See, the glory of God can be present and not everybody see it. John chapter 1 verse 14 tells us, the Word became flesh and lived for a while among us. We have seen the glory and the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and full of truth. See, God's glory walked on this earth, and some people saw it and became followers and disciples of Him. Others totally missed it. Again, we saw the high priests and everyone, they missed it. They in fact were a part of crucifying Jesus. Why is it? Because I think, without a doubt, the people of Jerusalem were focusing on the wrong things. They were focusing on the census, on the Roman rulers. They were focusing on the taxes they had to pay, all the things that were coming around that time. How were they going to make ends meet? How were they going to keep their house going? And be honest, we can relate with that. We worry about who's in power in our politics. We worry about our country. We worry about, can we afford the next thing? We worry about our taxes, the cost of gas, the cost of living's going up, and the pandemic. We can get caught in all the things of life and lose sight of the greatest thing, and that's Jesus Christ. We need to keep Jesus in the center of our focus. Let me pull this together for us right now. Herod, the religious leaders, and the people of Jerusalem all missed Christmas. I hope today you're not going to miss Christmas this year or any year to follow. They could have been self-centered like Herod. They could have been, spiritually dead. They had the title of religious leaders but didn't have the relationship. They were lethargic in their spirit. That was the religious leaders. They had lost focus. Their focus was on the wrong thing, the people of Jerusalem. They weren't looking for the Messiah. They didn't see the light. The great thing is we don't have to miss Christmas. God's glory came down to reveal Him to us today, to mankind. And today, He wants to reveal Himself to you right there in your home, right here where I am. He wants to reveal Himself to us. He wants us to know that He died for us, and He wants to be your Lord. I don't care how great your decorating of your house or outside of your house is this Christmas. I don't care how many gifts you've given or how many gifts you're getting. I don't even care if Santa Claus comes and knocks on your door or slides down your chimney. If you don't have Jesus at the center of your life, you will miss Christmas. You will miss it. Would you pray with me? Because I really don't want to see you miss Christmas this year. Jesus, help us not to be self-centered and to think life is only about us. You came and you set an example before us that you came to serve others. You put yourself second to everything and everyone. Help us not to lose the wonder and the love of your word and of prayer and of talking to you and of being in worship and worshiping your name. May every opportunity when we are in home and we're thinking about you, may you consume us, and may we feel you, and may we respond in our emotions. And even when we're in church, may we never miss an opportunity to allow our emotions to break loose in praise and worship to you. Lord, keep our focus on you instead of everything else. Everything else will try and creep in. It will try and steal our focus. And there's lots of things out there that want to steal our focus. But God, I choose, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what the problem is, you are the answer to everything in my life. And so, Jesus, you are where I will keep my focus. I don't want to miss a miracle. I don't want to miss you walking into my life and into this Christmas season. So, Lord, we ask for those that do not know you as Lord and Savior, that, Lord, right now, right where you're sitting, that if you've never asked Jesus to be the Lord of your life, if you've never asked him to come into your heart, that you would ask him right now. You would just, right now, say, hey, Lord, I am a sinner. I do a lot of bad things, and I'm asking you right now that you would forgive me and you would come into my life. And he will. He will come into your life in the same way as he came to this earth. He will come with his glory. And Jesus, I ask you to be the Lord of my life and work with me, mold me, make me into your image. And I love you and I will worship you. And I pray right now, if you prayed that prayer, you probably felt some warmth all over you. And that's what I'm talking about, that wow, that wonder, that wow factor. That doesn't need to ever change. It can be there every moment. You'll smell his fragrance. You'll know he's with you. Maybe you're not walking where you should be. Maybe you asked Jesus into your heart, but you know you're making the wrong choices. Well, why not this season? Why not today? Turn around and say, Jesus, forgive me. I want to come back into that place. Maybe you're that person that's got the title of a Christian, but you don't have the relationship. You walk into places and you talk about everything but Jesus. When you get into problems, you think about everything else but him. So we ask you right now, Lord, make this a Christmas where we don't miss you. In Jesus' name, amen.